Hi everyone, this is the second part to my video on exponents, and I decided to make the second part because I realized that I could have given a little bit more information on how to simplify exponents. Let's take, for example, you might come across a problem such as -6 squared. The first thing I would like you to realize is that this is a completely different problem than if you had -6 parentheses squared. Why? Well, the square sign, or the second power, is attached to the 6. And then we have this negative sign here saying that we're taking the negative of whatever 6 squared is. Essentially, we have this. So you're squaring 6, and we know that 6 squared, if I write that properly, 6 squared is 36. And then we have to put the negative sign back. And some of you might find that if you take your calculator and you put in -6 squared, you're thinking, oh well, 2 negatives should give me a positive. Why did my calculator give me a negative answer? Well, the calculator might not have been programmed properly, and it's not put in that parentheses around your -6. So the safest bet for you is to open parentheses, put -6, close parentheses, and then square it. That means you're telling the calculator that you want to do a -6 times another -6, which now you have negative times negative, and that will give you a positive 36. So please be careful with your negative signs. Remember, the negative sign without the parentheses means you're going to do the operation and then you apply the negative sign to it. By putting the parentheses with a negative sign inside of it, it means you're using the negative number to do your operation, and that could end up turning that number positive in the long run. Another problem you might come across well, before I move on, let's try another example with a variable. Please note that this problem, let's say we had 4x squared. That's a total different problem from 4x squared. This is not giving us anything to do. It's telling you that you have a 4 as your coefficient and you have an x squared in the problem. This, on the other hand, is telling you that you could have 2 copies of 4x, meaning you have 4x times another 4x, which 4 times 4 we know is 16, and x times x gives us 2 copies of x, which is how we got this answer. So now we have the squared on the x only because we already did the multiplication with the 4s. So again, we see where parentheses are very important. Without the parentheses, then these would be the same problem. But the parentheses makes a world of difference. As I was saying before, another problem you might come across during your homework or at school is write this particular expression in another way, or it could say find an equivalent expression. Let's look at 6x to the -3rd, and let's be careful and put our parentheses in. How could we write this as another expression? Well, we have to remember that 6x to the 3rd power means we need 3 copies. I'm going to use dot notation for a multiplication here. We need 3 copies of 6x, but because it's a -3, that means it's going to be in the denominator of our fraction. From here, we simply do 6 times 6, which is 36, and then we do 6 times 36, and I think that might be 256, but just to be certain, I'm going to do it here. 6 6 36, 6 3 is 18, and 3 more 21. So pardon me, 6 times 6 is 36, and then 6 times 36 will get you to 16. And then of course we have 3 copies of x's, so we put the x cubed at the bottom. And this is another way that we could have written this expression. Let's see if we can try another one real quickly. How about, let's see. Well, how about we try 2 different variables? Alright, we're going to work with x's and y's. We're going to work with x squared times y to the negative 3. Now we cannot multiply the xy and get a number out of it because these are variables. They're always going to remain x's and y's. But we know x squared means we have 2 copies of x, and then we're multiplying those 2 copies of x by 3 copies of y. Sorry, I didn't move the video to follow. But because it's a negative 3, we're going to put those 3 copies of y's in the denominator of the fraction. And since the x squared is in the numerator of the fraction, then it's really over 1. So what we have is, if we were to multiply the bottom, we're just left with our 3 copies of y. And if we were to multiply the top, 1 times our x's, we're just left with our 2 copies of x. Which our 2 copies of x is still x squared, and our 3 copies of y is still y cubed. And we just have x squared over y cubed, or y to the 3rd power. Notice I did not have to expand the x's here. I could have just wrote my x squared over 1 times, and I could have just put my 1 over my y to the 3rd power, and then I know that x squared times 1 gives me x squared, which is at the top. Well, I could put it next to it. So x squared times 1 gives me x squared, and 1 times y cubed, or y cubed times 1, gives me y cubed. And that would be it. Hopefully you guys found this video useful, and don't forget to check out my other videos on exponents. Don't forget to share, like, and subscribe. Have a good day.